So you guys know that one of my dream games has been for a long time a Pirates of the Caribbean game, like a really high production value open world adventure game set in the Pirates of the Caribbean universe. And I just always assumed that that was not a thing because it just never happened. However, Jacob, my editor who puts these videos together for us, told me that there was one such project that never saw the light of day, and he took the liberty of writing a few pages about it. So we are going to explore this story together. I know next to nothing about this game, and we're going to learn about it because apparently my dream game was a thing and was canceled by the one and only Bob Iger, which is just tremendous. Get ready for a story about a game that very nearly took the world by storm and would have beaten Black Flag to the market by 2 years. So dude, this thing was set to release in like 2011. So this is an oldie. It was called Pirates of the Caribbean Armada of the Damned, and it was being put together by Propaganda Games. What a tremendous name for a studio, right? Like imagine if they had like a TV studio instead of Fox News, it's like Propaganda News. That would actually be really, really funny. And it was set to be published by Disney Interactive Studios, which has at this point been pretty much entirely abandoned. Bob Iger, say what you will about him, he's been in the news a lot for this strike that's going on right now for reasons that I think are very justified, but he has single-handedly, steadily whittled down Disney's participation in the video game space, instead going entirely to like licensed media, giving EA and Ubisoft the ability to develop games, and then they just give them IP to do stuff with, like the Battlefront games or like Star Wars Outlaws, for example. Or Kingdom Hearts, right? Kingdom Hearts is also in that category of tremendous game. I know there's some Kingdom Hearts stans. I'm not one of them. I'm sorry. I just can't take Mickey Mouse in a black trench coat seriously with him like, oh no, Gimbledore is gonna kill everybody and destroy the universe. We have to get together. And then somebody with like an anime haircut shows up. It's not for me, fam. It's just not for me. I'm sorry.
Say, fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
So Propaganda Games was formed in 2005 under the umbrella of Disney Interactive Studios. The company was made up of former EA developers, and since they were existing within the massive dome that is Disney, Propaganda Games had a slew of big IPs at their disposal. And so naturally, Propaganda Games chose to start their first game with an IP that is synonymous with the Disney brand. Turok. Turok? What the... What is Turok? Hold on, let's look it up. So apparently in this game, you fight dinosaurs with like assault rifles and grenades and stuff. How did I not know about this game? How is this like a sleeper? This is crazy. Okay, you've caught my attention, Propaganda Games. Interesting. Now, apparently, Turok was an established IP on the N64. Makes sense why I don't remember it. I was a baby. So a reboot for a new generation of consoles is a pretty safe bet for a brand new studio, at least when you rewind the clocks to 2008. When the reboot was released, it received mixed reviews that tended to swing more positive than negative, which honestly is not a bad go of it for a studio's first release. I mean, brand new, they're devs from another big company, they've never done something together, to get moderately positive reviews. I'll take it. But perhaps more importantly, the game was considered a commercial success, selling over 1 million copies. And as a result, the team at Propaganda started early work on a sequel. But before Propaganda could get to Turok 2, they had to finish up 2 other projects that they had been working on. The first project Propaganda had to finish was the often forgotten Tron Evolution. And the second project was one that, similar to Turok 2, would never see the light of day. Pirates of the Caribbean Armada of the Damned. Oh man, how heartbreaking would it be to like come out swinging with your first game? It's dinosaurs, you shoot them with rocket launchers. It's just everything you want from a Jurassic Park game that you've never gotten. And then you get access to another huge IP and then your company shut down. Like I can already tell this story is going to be just tragic. We're already there. You gotta love big corporations just shutting down games because reasons. After the release of Turok, propaganda seemingly earned the trust of Disney, at least to the point where they could use one of their biggest brands of all time, that being Pirates of the Caribbean. And especially in 2008, Pirates of the Caribbean was huge. I mean, massive. I think if they did another one with Johnny Depp, it would probably be a billion-dollar movie pretty easily, but I mean, back in 2008, these things just printed money. Now, Armada of the Damned entered development shortly after the release of Turok in 2008, and it was likely going to be released sometime in early 2011. Yeah, you remember those days when it didn't take 5 to 7 years to get a new open world action RPG that ended up sucking and having terrible performance issues? Those were the days. This would make Armada of the Damned the first real deal single player pirate game that featured both ship combat and land combat, as well as a story, and since Black Flag wouldn't release until late 2013, it was going to stand on its own for a good long while. Now, the amount of info we have on Armada of the Damned is pretty deep, considering we're talking about a canceled game locked up in the other Disney vault. You know, the vault with all the racist shit. Oh no, it's in that vault. Oh no. Yeah, Disney's got some pretty deep vaults for stuff that they don't want you to know about. It's too bad that this one got tossed in there too. But the info we do have paints a picture of a game that is ambitious and incredibly unique for its time, with most of that uniqueness coming from the mix of ship and ground exploration, something that is certainly more mainstream now, but back in 2008 when this was being ideated, it was very novel. Now, fascinatingly, we actually have trailers, we have gameplay, we have interviews with devs, we have reports and articles. There is a ton of information about this game. Okay, this is at E3. You can see Pirates of the Caribbean, Armada of the Damned. They had marketing stuff here. They had a booth at E3. Like, this was pretty hardcore.
Allowing you to be a captain, and we're doing something different with that. So as you acquire your ship, as you repair it and upgrade it, we're kind of making sure that you invest in it as much as your character. It's really important that you recruit your crew and manage your crew, because that gives you additional rewards, additional upgrades. Ultimately become the most revered vessel on the sea. But that's one side of it. Then we have all the classic on-land experience, so we have our land combat. But then there's multiple towns and there's dozens of islands to explore and discover, and there's hundreds of characters in this game that you can actually talk to, gain quests from, and just explore the game as you see fit.
I'm so sad this isn't a thing. This looks great. Everything sucks. Okay, to go through some information that we do have about the game, you play as a character named James Sterling, a pirate captain looking to make a name for himself. That's original. It was designed as an action RPG, also set in an open world that focused on encouraging exploration. In the gameplay clips that we do have, we see such naval exploration, land exploration, discussions with characters, combat both on the water and on the land. And altogether, I mean, it really does look like this game, even though it never released, served as direct inspiration for Black Flag, which was just a couple of years behind. It was set before the events of the Black Pearl film, and it featured a pretty extensive skill and leveling system that featured, in addition to regular abilities for combat, even some supernatural abilities. I mean, personally, if I was developing the game, I probably wouldn't do that. However, in the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, there's like magical curses and stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. I think it just depends on what it means to have supernatural abilities. But for 2008, I don't blame them at all for having magic. I'm surprised they didn't also have like girls in bikinis walking around, although they probably also had that. 2008 was a wild time in gaming. You would also choose between being a legendary or dreaded pirate, with your decisions mattering and reflecting what kind of pirate you were, either dreaded or legendary, with branching dialogue options and presumably consequences within the story based on what you chose to do or not do. You would also build your ship up from a simple pile of lumber all the way to the point of it being the most powerful ship on the 7 seas. You would also recruit and manage your own crew, something that would allow you to have even more customization within the ship beyond basic ship upgrades like changing out the hull or improving the sails. And the game's director described it as a single-player story-driven experience. And the more gameplay we see of this thing, the crazier it looks. I mean, it really did seem to be something special. Now, what they showed us in ship combat and navigation did seem to look fairly simplified compared to what we eventually got with Black Flag, with the main focus being either to hit the enemy ship's hull or the sails themselves. Different means of attack would have been ramming or simply firing the broadside cannons, but beyond that, it didn't seem that there was a lot there. They also described the combat as being directly inspired by God of War, which is something I totally buy looking at this footage. I mean, you look back at those late 2000s God of War style games and they all played like this, but they were also the trend at the time. Just like right now we're getting a ton of games that are directly inspired by like Elden Ring or other action RPGs out there. It's no surprise that a lot of these games' combat systems looked similar to each other, but this one honestly doesn't look that bad. They also have some sequences like this where you can see just the scope of what they were trying to do. Look at that island. Presumably you can go sail around the whole thing exploring the island, and then there's other islands that you can see in the far off distance. Like, this really was going to be something massive. This wasn't a small linear movie adaptation of a film that released within 6 months of this game dropping. This was not directly tied into a movie release. This was meant to be a great game set in the Pirates of the Caribbean universe, not a movie adaptation that was kind of crappy and just shoveled out quickly to get it out in time for the theatrical release of a film that might be able to do some of the lifting as far as marketing was concerned. This was going to be something special. Pirates of the Caribbean Armada of the Damned was canceled after Disney executives decided to restructure propaganda games. And by restructure, I mean lay off more than 100 employees working on either Armada of the Damned or Tron Evolution. Since Tron Evolution was slated for a December 2010 release, the team that was left at Propaganda worked to finish Tron Evolution, as well as its post-launch downloadable content. Tron Evolution released to mixed reviews, which seems like a trend with these propaganda fellas, and was nowhere near as successful as Turok, which sold over 1 million copies. I will say this doesn't really surprise me either. I mean, morale and the quality of work had to be pretty it's like pretty low. I mean, imagine like you come into work and you're really excited to finish this project, and then your boss says, oh yeah, when you finish that, you're freaking fired. Okay? You're done. But still do like a really good job, please. Like, you'd be like, screw you, dude. Like, I'm gonna get it done because I don't want to be fired before I'm fired, but I'm not gonna put my heart and soul into this. Like, it doesn't surprise me at all that this game didn't launch super well. I can only imagine how much of a trudge that would have been. Like, yeah, when you finish this thing, your life is changing really badly. So hurry up. You know, like I can only imagine. Tron Evolution went on to sell 190,000 copies, and Disney decided at that point to just simply close down Propaganda Studios, sealing the fate of Armada of the Damned. Feelings towards Armada of the Damned were really positive from the press, and that same press expressed their disappointment when the game was canceled, especially considering that the game was not too far off from release, with the cancellation coming months before what would be considered early 2011. Yeah, that's a good point. This Tron Evolution game launched in late 2010. They were set to release Pirates of the Caribbean Armada of the Damned in early 2011, so presumably just at most 6 months later, and they still canceled it and walked away. Like, it had to be very, very close to finished. This is just making me hate Bob Iger even more. The reason behind the cancellation is a bit murky, but rumors suggest that, get this, Disney's upper management and executives didn't get along too well with propaganda games. If I had to guess, Disney probably wanted to spend not so much money, and Propaganda wanted to spend a bit more money. Disney did already have a Pirates of the Caribbean game out at the time, Pirates of the Caribbean Online, and had another on the way with LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean releasing in May of 2011. And given that music from Armada of the Damned was actually repurposed for LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean, I think it's probably safe to assume that Disney was trying to shift its image in the video game space to a more family-friendly appearance. And the most damning evidence for this theory is the rebranding of Disney Interactive Media Group. In 2008, Disney rebranded Buena Vista Internet Group into Disney Interactive Media Group via a merger. Disney was then clearly trying to establish themselves in the world of video games with a fresh face. But then, a certain company started work on what was set to be the next fad game, and that studio was Avalanche, and that game was Disney Infinity. It's actually quite possible that Armada of the Damned was canceled because Disney wanted to aim its game division at a younger audience. And wouldn't you know, Disney rebranded its game and internet division again via a merger in 2012, 1 year before the release of Disney Infinity. I mean, this doesn't really surprise me. It would make sense that they were just trying to go for a more family-friendly approach, but the other piece of this too is that Disney, as recognizable as the brand is not actually as successful a company as you would think. I know it's like Disney owns everything. Disney is massive and multi-billion-dollar company, and they've got these theme parks and all these brands and IP that everybody recognizes. But frankly, those brands and the IP that they own are valuable, but there's not much more to Disney beyond that. Like, they have ESPN, they have ABC, they have these theme parks that are successful but also stupid expensive to run. And then they have films, but if they have 1 or 2 bad movies that don't do really well at the box office, their whole company struggles as a result of that, which is why everybody's freaking out now and their stock is down because their last like 8 movies have lost money. And frankly, in the video game space, they've never been successful. They've always sucked at this. And it's unfortunate because they have so many great IP that they could do so much with, but they've just never been able to spend the time and effort and money to build a team that can actually put out quality content. In the case of Propaganda Games, it seems like they established them, gave them 1 or 2 cracks at the nut, and then decided to just shut the whole thing down because they couldn't get the nut opened or exposed. That sounds wrong. However, all of this is just speculation. At the end of the day, Propaganda only released 2 titles and they failed to get strong critical responses. Maybe it is as simple as Disney simply saving fans from disappointment with the cancellation of Armada of the Damned, and maybe it wasn't anywhere near as good as it looked in the press. We may never get to see what could have happened with Armada of the Damned, but one thing we know for sure is that when you think of Disney, you think of Turok. That's true, Jacob. That is true. This whole story is like kind of heartbreaking because the game looked like it was pretty special. And as always, like, it's possible it looked really good at E3 and in media interviews and stuff. But when you actually played it, maybe it was terrible. Maybe it was super buggy. Maybe they were over promising and they would totally underdeliver. We don't know. And it's very probable we never will. However, the story is one that I think we can all understand and that we're all frustrated by, which is the idea that big corporations make broad sweeping decisions that harm an art form that we know and love simply because their dimes and nickels didn't line up at the bottom of the spreadsheet, so they decided to just cancel it all and move on. And I can understand that. I have a degree in corporate finance. I would have been one of the guys working on the team to price out whether this project was viable or not. So I get this budgeting stuff more than most, I think. However, as somebody who loves video games as an art form and appreciates the art form in general, I'm conflicted because I think it's so terrible that you can have some guy like a Bob Iger or a guy like me in a suit running numbers in a spreadsheet, and they can just come along and destroy this thing that has a lot of potential and could have been really, really special simply because, again, their dollars and cents weren't lining up. It's just an unfortunate reality when you have business so tightly intertwined with art. Things like this happen and you get gems that potentially get tossed into the ocean and lost forever. Let me know, would you have played Pirates of the Caribbean Armada of the Damned, or do you think this looked like total ass? Let me know. Also, if you like these kinds of videos, make sure to like the video and comment so that we know it's worth trying again, and I can have Jacob write some other scripts on other games or things in gaming media that I might not know about because I am a sheltered prude. No, in reality, I just was raised in a very sheltered household, so I didn't get to experience most of this stuff. I have no idea about a lot of like interesting historical things in the gaming space, and I love learning about it. So if you want to see more videos like this and learn with me, let me know. But with that, thank you for watching. Much love. I'll see you in the next one, and subscribe and like the video and subscribe and check out the merch and stuff. I'm bad at outros. Thanks for watching. I love you. Bye.